Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty Season 7, Episode 4, That's Amorte, aka the Spaghetti episode. We've actually known this episode was coming for a while, like back at New York Comic Con, Adult Swim president Michael Owaleen, the Adult Swim president, teased that this episode would sit alongside Pickle Rick in the Vat of Acid episode as one of the most memorable in the show's history, and you know what? I think he's right. Writer Heather Ann Campbell came up with a brilliant episode of the series that thematically parallels Season 4's Vat of Acid in so many ways, so let's break down all the animation details, the Easter eggs, the inside jokes, and the deeper layers of meaning. Content warning though, the episode we are breaking down has to do with self-harm. So if you are not interested in that kind of content, you don't need to keep watching. Okay, we open with...
Who's ready for Rick's famous spaghetti?
Based on everyone's unhinged enthusiasm, we know something's gonna be off about this spaghetti. And the animators include a troublesome little wobble and a drip of bolognese sauce from that casserole dish that we're just like, ugh, yuck, what is this? Summer chucks her smartphone against the wall and it breaks in half. Whatever text conversation was having, the green bubble means that there's some non-iOS user in the chat there. Gross. But the screen goes black on the break and Morty runs in with his bib already on. Rick says,
That's some good spaghetti!
Grandpa Rick, I am skull emoji, but words.
Yeah, he uses a classic Italian hand gesture that actually comes from a 1969 Alka-Seltzer commercial.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Morty says,
So nice that we're talking, you know, all talking because we're a family and everything, and this is a good time we're having.
yeah, this whole idea of families bonding over spaghetti dinners combined with the social anxiety over where our food comes from and factory farming was writer Heather Ann Campbell's root concept. Like she told Variety, spaghetti is the family meal. When you're growing up and your mom makes something, it's gonna be spaghetti. So the idea that Rick has been obfuscating the truth of where his spaghetti is coming from in an artificial attempt to create this familial experience felt pretty on the nose. Campbell also wrote the Panda Express fortune cookie episode from season 6, Final Desmithation, and admitted a lot of her pitches end up being food-based. She continued, there's so many different ways in which we are barricaded from the truth of everything that we enjoy, and I think that the puzzle of being alive is how to reconcile that. When a wolf eats a rabbit, the wolf's not like worried about it. It is a very specific experience to being human, to being conscious of something in a way that nothing else in the animal kingdom seems to have to digest. Oh, Heather, always working in some great jokes and everything. Morty realizes that the spaghetti comes from a corpse.
Why is it always this shit with you? Of course it's a person, Rick. Why couldn't it just be spaghetti?
Rick hoped to keep this on a small scale and didn't intend on the operation heightening to a global crisis, but it's Morty who takes it to that extreme, just like Morty does in the timeline respawn device in the Vat of Acid episode. Rick takes Morty to the planet 41 Kepler B, a planet that's like a small version of Earth, like the skyscrapers and mountains are visible from space and jut up from the surface. And I actually think there's some significance to why this planet is the size it is. Rick explains that on this planet, people who end their own lives turn into spaghetti.
What?
I know, you're a visual learner, so follow me.
Yeah, Rick resents people who need visual aids beyond his verbal explanations, a la his PowerPoint joke last episode. I also love how his lasers put Morty in a backless hospital gown, but for Rick, it just adds a stethoscope to his outfit, which is already a doctor's white lab coat. Rick slices open the bodies. In that first one, the murder victim has the shape of in the groin region there. Yeah, this show and its hidden dickies. The corpse's innards are delicious spaghetti bolognese.
Come on, Morty, choo-choo plane.
Gross.
Come on.
Choo-choo plane is a hilarious nonsensical thing that I'm gonna do with my future kid, but I assume it's because Rick considers normal human aircraft to be as antiquated as trains, which is why he kind of seems dismissive when he brings up Kitty Hawk later. Rick explains,
Their cortisol increases the starch content in their bloodstream, changing their intestines into one long spaghetti noodle and the surrounding tissues into a spicy sweet hematoma that we would call a bolognese.
yes, cortisol is a steroid hormone produced by the adrenal glands, released when you're stressed or even when you just scream. Cortisol just comes out. And it's just gotta be a coincidence that this episode drops during season 2 of Loki, which features characters dying by spaghettifying, a concept pulled from theoretical physics in which those who enter black holes are condensed into one long noodle strand of themselves. And Rick's usual puke dribble has been replaced with the even grosser blood clot tomato sauce. The coroner catches them and Rick pulls out a memory wiper.
Before you do that, just...
Rick, stop!
What? Where am I?
In a morgue, eating bodies.
Where what?
Stop using that thing!
What thing? Who are we?
We were just leaving.
All you had to say.
Yeah, I just love the running joke in this episode, there being some dark shortcut phrase for anyone on this planet. That's all you had to say. But this device is, of course, based on the neuralizer from Men in Black. Rick doesn't want to wear sunglasses to protect his own eyes from the flash, and he always just aims it the wrong way. But we know Rick has a lot of experience with like memory wiping and backups to reset your memories, as we saw in the Morty's Mind Blower episode. After Morty promises he just wants to know the spaghetti people's names and not go to their funerals, we go to one of the funerals immediately. The church is a symbol of a cross with a semicircle cutting through it. Just a lot of little little details that make this just a slightly alternate Earth. Rick growls on their way in.
The only reason you're still alive is because you don't turn delicious when you die.
Yeah, that greeter at the church door side-eyes Rick on that one, wondering why this grandpa is threatening cannibalism. Now, no one wants to speak at Lawrence's funeral, so Morty tries to do the right thing.
It brought us together. Lawrence brought us together. It just felt wrong not having anyone know that. But he was delicious. I hope that helps make it right.
Rick will prove later this episode that visuals work better than words. Show, don't tell, which is ironic considering Rick previously mocked visual aids and visual learners. But notice Lawrence's 2 kids sitting in that front pew. Lawrence was Amber's husband, the carpenter of the year that she left for Fred Bunk in the episode's montage in the final act. He has the same exact hairstyle as the corpse that we saw in the garage, and the photo that she shows Fred during that montage shows the full family with those same 2 kids. Now, you'll notice his hair had not grayed when his corpse was in Rick's garage, but based on how fast everything progresses on the spaghetti planet and how small this planet is compared to Earth, I think that time progresses faster, people age faster, and that Lawrence took his own life sometime after Amber left him for Fred. We see an attendee filming Morty's speech with his phone, and I just like the little art design details on the phones and the cars all being a bit more angular than the normal Earth designs. Morty tells the family,
Summer, it was people.
"It's people!" A reference to the famous line from the movie Soylent Green, a movie in which an unwitting populace consumes processed humans for food. And Charlton Heston screams, "Soylent Green is people!" This episode shows the society embracing that though in the marketing, stamping "It's people" on the cans and the boxes. Jerry gripes,
First octopus, now this. Have we thought about just giving up and joining the fascist half of the country?
No.
Just saying, they get to do more.
octopi are surprisingly intelligent. They have emotions and memories and can feel pain. Just remember that. Morty watches porn with a very specific bad family therapist farm girl on a website that kind of looks like the layout of Pornhub. We're reminded of Morty's liberal kink when it comes to Planetina in A Rick Convenient Mort when she became an eco-terrorist and he had to reject her. 41 Kepler b sends a shuttle. There is an actual planet called Kepler 41b. It's a gas giant discovered in 2011. Morty boards the shuttle.
Can that thing support my weight?
It should.
Okay. Up here. Jeez. Ever heard of a ramp?
This is a ramp.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say here. I just love this bit. So Morty is greeted by the Spaghetti Planet president.
Hi, Morty. I'm the president of this planet.
Yeah, it looks like her character was based visually at least on Kamala Harris. The Oval Office has portraits of women from throughout their history. Maybe all past presidents of this planet have been women. And that's why you have presidents of the entire planet, because they didn't have like borders and wars and fought over stupid shit. But this president is far from perfect. She sees an opportunity of a Dr. Kevorkian argument of a right to die as a way to profit so long as they consent to do so, which would make the spaghetti ethically sourced. So they find a new chief export, and Morty serves ethical spaghetti. And I like how this scene starts with a 2-camera shot that mirrors Rick's at the beginning of the episode.
Has the Parmesan.
Yes, Parmesan, a callback to the Parmesan universe where no one can pronounce the word Parmesan. We saw that in the season 6 premiere.
The exact same as our old timeline.
So they do say Parmesan weird.
How do they say?
Parmesan.
Rick reveals the Spaghetti Planet has been profiting from Morty-approved Mortios, obviously based on SpaghettiOs. And Rick plays the recording.
Hi, I'm Roger Wayne Martyr. I was a serial killer and cannibal, and now I get to kill myself and be food for you, which I suppose is a silver lining to all my misdeeds.
Yeah, serial killers are often known by their first, middle, and last name, and his middle name is Wayne, like John Wayne Gacy. Jeffrey Dahmer, though, was the most infamous cannibal serial killer, but his last name is Martyr, which yes, does sound like murder, but it's also the surname of head writer of the show, Scott Martyr. The Spaghetti Planet has clearly gone to shit. A homeless man had a poster with "The End is Nigh" written on it, which is the same text to the sign that Rorschach carried in Watchmen before the world experienced their squid apocalypse. This guy, I gotta say, kind of looks like a bald version of Dan Harmon. Now, longtime New Rockstars viewers know how much we use Geologie and how long we've been using it for, but if this is your first time hearing about Geologie, get ready for blockbuster quality skincare on a student film budget. Geologie is a 23-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company recognized in Men's Health, Oprah Daily, Hypebeast, Birdie, Esquire, and GQ. Geologie's products are just a handful of powerful, proven ingredients that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades. Geologie can help you fight acne, reduce oiliness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark or puffy under eyes, have smoother, hydrated skin, and target signs of aging. Everything you need to keep your skin healthy, no matter how much you soak in the pool this summer. Don't know where to start? Geologie can create a simple and effective skincare or hair care routine for you. All you gotta do is take a quick 30-second quiz. Right now, if you use the code NewRockstars100, Geologie will give you 100% off their award-winning skincare trial set. You'll also get an additional bonus offer of up to 30% off one skin, hair, or body products when you add it to your trial. It's truly a wild offer, one of the best they've ever given our audience. So click the link in the description or go to geolog.ie/rockstars100 to get started. They pass various billboards. They are living life well because you left. The billboard below at first looks like the word rapists before the camera shifts down to reveal it's therapists. And you can re-degree for free, brought to you by the Better Spaghetti Bureau. The idea, I guess, being they don't need therapists anymore now that they're encouraging ending it all. Rick flies past the most scenic jump, he says, a bridge that looks like San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge is sadly a common destination for this kind of thing, but thankfully there is some fencing, and usually there are people there on the lookout to talk to any troubled people who might walk out there alone. There was actually a 2006 documentary called The Bridge about people who had jumped from it, and yeah, some people have survived that fall into the water. A good reminder here that if you need help, please do not hesitate to call 988. It is available 24 hours. In this episode, we see that the Spaghetti Planet removed the safety rails of the bridge and made them into pasta colanders, visually recalling the colander that Rick used in his garage for his brain swapping, but thankfully we don't see anyone dropping into those colanders here. The Variety article details that there were versions of the episode that would have seen people leaping off buildings and turning into spaghetti, or where Rick was the one who had the crisis of conscience, or where Morty became a spaghetti dealer in the vein of Walter White. They said underlying it all was the tonal balancing act of making comedy about large-scale, self-inflicted, profit-driven death. Rick says that on the radio, it's not all Enya, as Morty guesses, but rather
all morning zoo teams, just patter, no songs. Oh, and for TV, wall-to-wall reality television, but not the good kind. It's like their whole planet was bought by Discovery.
It is while they fly past a changing billboard with the shows Infidelity Island, Inseparable Sisters, and a nature show called That's Dinner. But yeah, this is all a hit on Rick and Morty's parent company, Warner Discovery, which has flooded the Max streaming service with titles like 90 Day Fiancé and MILF Manor. The president says,
With what's coming in from intergalactic spaghetti trade, we've decreased our debt, are making a lot of money. We've got clean energy.
That space where you paused is where you should have said mental health care.
And Morty realizes he just made things worse.
If you help me, I promise I'll never look under the curtain at a Rick thing to figure out what's bad about it ever again.
And you can never say no to me.
What are you, Keith Raniere?
Keith Raniere, a reference to the leader of the Nexium cult that gaslit its members into all sorts of horrible things. For more details on this, watch another Warner Discovery title, The Vow. Morty's solution is to use clones for this.
What are you suggesting here? A sped-up lifespan and indoctrination program? Limiting their exposure to the world and convincing them that becoming spaghetti is their destiny?
And another sci-fi consequence immediately progressed to 3 days later, where we see two clones fleeing into the forest and shooting each other. Again, time moves just way too fast on this planet. I think it's because it's so small. Now, yes, we have seen this trope in the 2010 movie Never Let Me Go, based on the 2005 novel. Rick cites that here. Sorry, spoiler warning. But it's also a familiar concept we've seen in a lot of things, like 2005's film The Island, which itself was ripped off from a 1979 movie called Parts the Clonus Horror. Rick says,
I guess all clone stories turn out the same way.
This does not bode well for his daughter, considering she has been cloned. Let's just remember this line for later this season, because it might lead to some kind of dark fate for somebody. Morty asks about clones who aren't exactly people, and Rick's an expert in gray areas. His first subject is someone with no frontal lobe, no empathy sensors, but since the subject doesn't know the difference between life and death, no spaghetti, because remember, the spaghettification is based on the hormone of cortisol, which comes from the adrenal glands. The next subject, which Rick says would be in unimaginable pain from the moment it's born, he hadn't even made because he knew Morty would object.
You might want to examine the trolley problem at some point, Morty.
Yes, the trolley problem is a utilitarian thought experiment where it says you can see a trolley headed for a track with 5 people on it, but if you pull a lever, it would divert the trolley to one person. So you would have saved those 5 people, but killed the one. This whole concept was explored in an amazing episode of The Good Place. Now, the last clone is just a torso with motor functions. Morty pantomimes giving the clone a claw to stab itself.
All you had to say.
So this leads to a factory that is inspired by lab-grown meat. That's meat made from animal cells as opposed to living animals. It's more expensive to produce now, but might become more commonplace in the future if consumers accept it. Now, this meat is not considered vegetarian, unlike Impossible Foods and Beyond Foods. But the torsos go down the this assembly line to this jazzy music inspired by the classic song Powerhouse. That's the song that plays in Looney Tunes every time we see any kind of factory sequence. So they are cut open, and I don't want to show you too much of it, but other than the spaghetti that comes out, there's also some dark waste showing that it's not the same pure spaghetti. Two different groups of protesters attack, torsos, rights, and real spaghetti. The old spaghetti faction seems to be aliens, but there is a brain in a jar that kind of looks like Krang from TMNT. They blow up the factory, society collapses. Actually, we see on the roof of one building, there is a corpse that is turned into spaghetti. So Rick has one more idea. A terminally ill patient with 2 months to live named Fred Bunk, who refuses to feed the sick system, but Rick talks him into engaging in this experiment to give his death meaning. So he takes him to this euthanasia chamber that was already ready to go with a viewing gallery for people to watch. Likely Rick built this place for himself to use someday, I assume. Rick hijacks the airwaves and tells Fred to think about his life. Now this room is the color orange, reminding me of the end of life chamber from Soylent Green, in which the guy requested that the color orange be cast on the walls as he looked at a montage of pleasant imagery. Rick compares this to the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk, referring to the location in North Carolina where the Wright brothers first flew their plane that they named the Wright Flyer. He believes empathy will be as revolutionary for everybody watching as flying was for us, which I love because the song Live Forever includes the lyric, maybe I just want to fly, want to live, I don't want to die. What follows is a beautiful piece of animated visual storytelling, recalling the montage from the Vat of Acid episode and set to this Oasis song Live Forever that's covered here by Kotomi and Ryan Elder. Heather Ann Campbell told Variety, quote, "What was most important to me about that sequence is that when we see those montages of people's lives in movies, they always follow a very standard arc. Interested in a thing, gets a job at the thing, makes the thing, and life is not like that at all. It is a huge number of detours and disappointments that make your life. It's not a direct path, it's like a river with a bunch of branches." So unlike the montage in Pixar's Up, or the Vat of Acid montage, or even the Roy A Life Well Lived video game, Fred's life is messy. It takes unexpected turns with random recurring themes, but doesn't really fit a perfect narrative structure, and that's what makes it so touching. So the first thing we see is Fred in his crib. He has a stuffed rabbit with a strawberry and a strawberry on the mobile, setting up his lifelong love of strawberry jelly. He plays with toys. These aren't Tinker toys, they're actually called Constructs, which is an actual building toy that debuted in 1983. It's been discontinued and then resurrected a few different times. Then he eats jelly as the urban building skyline is behind the jelly, linking the two things he loves in life, the sweetness of strawberries and the visual majesty of a well-designed city. And we'll see how Amber fits into both of those, because the teacher then snaps at him for doodling, but Amber is sitting to the side, taking pity on him there. Then he meets Amber when he's a bit older by his locker. In the trophy case, we see the years 1953 and 1954 and sports ball on the jersey. Fred shows Amber his room with the models he's building based on Wunderdam and Chassenville Hotel Tower, which look like this planet's Big Ben and Notre Dame Cathedral. They graduate, but then they split up when Fred goes to college. We see him struggling in his architecture classes. He calls Amber on a video phone that has a rotary dial, which is another great little alternate world detail. We see Fred dropping out of school, meeting another girl, drinking some booze based on a less sweet fruit, a Merlot can, but misses Amber throughout all this. He drives over the Golden Gate Bridge and his car swerves ever so slightly, which is so sad to me. It's that dark instinct kicking in, but he stops himself. But Amber won't take him back, so he moves back in with his parents, they pass away, and he rediscovers his toys. But frustrated with these constructs, he designs his own toys that he calls Fred Blocks, which link together just like Lego do. He sells them on a Shark Tank-like show, and they're a huge success. In his mansion, we see Fred scrolling a Facebook-like site called Friendbook. He comes across Amber's profile. Then when they meet over drinks, he learns that she's married, but they kiss, and she leaves her husband. We see a sign in their house that reads Carpenter of the Year, which means failing to lock down an architect, she married a carpenter. And again, I'm almost certain this is Lawrence. Same hairstyle, same kids, and notice he has bandages around his midsection. Maybe some injury down there that would have made it easier for Rick to crack open that lobster and go digging. Amber completes her divorce, they grow old together, and they eat strawberry jelly. So again, this is not like the perfect romance. It's just kind of like life. And then on her headstone, look what's carved onto it, a strawberry. Also, there's a headstone with the spaghetti planet cross that we pointed out before. And then Fred turns back up to look at the skyline that inspired him as a kid when he first ate from that open jar of jelly. Jesus Christ, truly a life well lived. So now after watching this beautiful journey, Morty just can't help but puke when he's served the spaghetti, and Rick sums it up.
Cells consume, Morty. Life itself is wrong, and that means death is right. But you can't side with that, so you live, even when it means eating. And Fred here really did it well.
Rick swaps out spaghetti night for Salisbury steak night, a food with probably an even worse origin. And I want to hear from you in the comments below where you think that Salisbury steak comes from. The post-credit scene shows a vacuum and tree person planet where a Groot-like person in the euthanasia chamber, and you'll notice there's a Rick-colored vacuum cleaner, and a viewing gallery behind them has ramps instead of seats and steps. Masses of vacuum cleaners watch this. There's a Louis Vuitton-style store called Bag, B-H-A-A-G, and when the vacuum cleaners realize their bags come from these beans, they all spew out dust. I love this episode. I think it's been the best Rick and Morty episode in years, at least since that of Acid.
I'm canceling the rest of my night and calling a bone scientist. We're getting to the bottom of this.
Jesus Christ, enough already!
Hey, New Rockstars is doing a live show on November 16th. If you live in the LA area, it's at Brain Dead Studios on Fairfax. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Ticket info in the description. Please support us with a Loki-themed We're All Gonna Die shirt, available at nerdriot.shop. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. Follow me on all social platforms at EA Voss. Big thanks to Jordan Morris for helping me write this breakdown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.